Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, your virtual ticket to life, health, and travel. Today I'm going to be talking about my experiences dating. I currently live in Japan, but this video is not just for people who are living in Japan. It's dating tips that you can take on virtually any date around the world. I feel like when it comes to dating, it's pretty much the same thing wherever you are in the world. The only difference is culture, the people. Obviously, I live in Japan. There's a sea of Japanese men and women waiting to be dated. I'm just going to give you general dating tips along with some bonus tips on dating Japanese men and women as well if you are interested in that. This video is by no means a video on how to get a Japanese girlfriend or how to get a Japanese boyfriend. I'm just gonna give you tips based off my experiences and what I did to date in Japan, or a date abroad, or date anywhere, to be honest, throughout my whole entire life. These are things that I've learned. So let's just get right into the video. So my tip number one is to put yourself out there. Don't sit at home expecting your Prince Charming or your next girlfriend to walk into the front door and sweep you off your feet. If you're ready to date, then you need to do something about it. Don't hide in your apartment, don't hide in your room, go meet people, go make friends, get out there. Tip number two, what I did was I started using dating apps. I know, dating apps, yeah, you get those people that are trying to hook up, and you know, if that's what you want, that's cool with me, but I was really looking for someone that was inspiring, outgoing, fun to hang out with, and the one app that I used the most was Bumble. Bumble is a app like Tinder, but I feel like a lot of the people on there are more serious about relationships. That's why I chose that particular app. It also has a best friend mode, which I really like. I met a couple girls on there and we all went out to karaoke and for some drinks. I think Bumble I had the most connections on versus Tinder. I did have Tinder, but I wasn't really making very genuine connections. Luckily for Bumble, it's great for women because women have to make the first move before the man. So you have to express interest in the guy that you swiped or the guy that swiped you before you can have a conversation, which I kind of like. And that leads me to tip number three. Okay, so there were times where I would swipe somebody and we would start talking for like a few hours and I'd be like,
okay, let's do the damn thing. Let's go on a date. I'm excited.
To be honest, those dates were like the worst dates. So what I advise you guys to do is when you swipe somebody, make sure you have a conversation with that person for at least a week or a few days. You can't really genuinely get to know somebody unless you have some kind of good conversation. You'll find some witty, clever women, men on there that are interesting to talk to. You'll end up meeting people that sometimes just don't look like their picture, and that can be confusing sometimes. Take your time. Take your time, get to know the person before you go on the date. Make sure they're not some weirdo. Tip number four, don't swipe everybody. On those apps, just don't do the swipey thing like it's a workout. You're gonna get some weird connections, I'm not gonna lie. Swipe the people that you're genuinely interested in, no matter where they're located. Even if they're all the way in India, maybe they're traveling, maybe they're coming back to Tokyo, maybe they live in Tokyo, maybe they live where you live in your city, but they're just on vacation. You never know. And honestly, if I didn't have that thought in my head, a friend of mine told me, just swipe where you're interested in. It doesn't matter like where they are, just swipe. I feel like that's such a big tip of mine because I just think you'll pass up some really good opportunities and really good dates and really good women and men out there. Okay, a bonus tip is to use the app Meetup. And I'm going to tell you that the Meetup app does have a Tokyo singles meetup group. I never went to one of those. I'm such a busy person, so I feel like just the dating apps in general were better for my situation and my lifestyle. I was interested in going to one of those, but I just never got the chance. They do have meetup groups for singles, and it looks like a lot of fun. You can meet people organically that way. It's not necessarily like a dating app, but it still can help you meet other people. Yeah, so that's just a little bonus tip. Tip number five, when you're dating somebody or when you're going to go on a date with somebody, make sure that you're on the same page. There were times where I thought, oh, this guy's so nice. And then I would go on the date and then he would tell me,
I'm leaving in 2 months.
And then you just sit there and you're just like, oh, well, this is a waste of my life. Make sure you're not meeting up with somebody that's moving out in like a month and you'll never see again, because why? But if you're not genuinely looking for a relationship, I think that's totally fine. I really recommend that you ask that person what their intentions are. Don't make it sound like, oh, I want a relationship tomorrow. Just be like, hey, I'm looking for a genuine connection, somebody to get to know. Are you interested in meeting up? Just to make sure that they're gonna be here long term. Okay, so once you have a date in Japan or wherever else you are in the world, my number one tip for when you go on the date is to go into the date without expecting a relationship. When you're very anxious going into a date, wishing that you had somebody in your life, it really puts a damper on the evening and it doesn't make it fun. And I feel like you ask all the wrong questions. It's good to think about the now. Don't think about the future. Don't get me wrong, there is a chance that you'll have that mega connection where you two are just like in sync and this is it and you just want to start something. It's so rare, but it's so real. It's happened to me, and I feel like those kinds of relationships are like the best types of relationships, but that doesn't always happen. Every person is different, every connection is different. When it comes to dating a Japanese guy or a Japanese girl, things go a little bit slower, so it's really good to not come off too strong when it comes to dating somebody Japanese. I'm sure not every Japanese person is like that. Yeah, the dating culture here is a little bit slower than the Western dating life. Tip number 2, when you're on the date, make eye contact and ask lots of questions. This kind of goes with what I was talking about in my last tip. Ask questions, stay in the now, be interested in that person. Don't start talking about yourself. I've been on a date with somebody. Like this video if you want to hear lots of stories about dating in Japan, because I do have a lot of them. I met somebody that literally didn't look like their picture. All he did was talk about himself. He overshared, told me that his dad was dating multiple women and his mom didn't know and he thought it was really funny. Don't overshare, don't talk about yourself too much. Ask the girl or the guy lots of questions because you want to get to know that person as much as possible in a short amount of time. If you're on a date with somebody that's Japanese, you have a little bit of a language barrier. Teach each other some things. I feel like if you want to date somebody that's of that culture that doesn't speak your language fluently, I feel like just learning about each other's language is a good topic starter. Or just learning about each other's culture, I think that's a great topic. Test your chemistry. I know a lot of people say take it slow in the beginning, don't go too fast, which is very true, but to be honest, I feel like at least by the second or third date, you should try to figure out your physical chemistry part of the relationship, because I feel like relationships last longer if you know that you have a physical attraction to each other. I feel like by the second or third date, you should go in for the kiss. When it comes to dating someone Japanese, I feel like they're a little bit slower in that department, at least in my experience, so I wouldn't immediately go for the kiss. If I'm dating someone from a Western perspective, I feel like you kind of have to feel that spark. You have to feel that tension, that physical tension. If you really are feeling it between each other, then yeah, go for it on the first date. Because you never know. I've been on maybe 1 or 2 dates, and then by the second date, we kissed, and it just wasn't right. It kind of killed that vibe for me, so I feel like you really have to test those waters at some point. And my final tips before you start dating or putting yourself out into the dating world, try to love yourself before you get into a relationship. I feel like if you practice self-love and you're in a relationship with yourself before you move on to an actual relationship, that's probably my number 1 tip to share before you start getting into any of these other tips. If you're always putting yourself down, if you always have negative vibes, then you're never gonna make a relationship last. Travel a little bit, meet some new friends, go on dates not expecting things. Dating still is a good process of self-love because you figure out what you like and what you don't like. Explore yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, in so many ways. Live your single life and love yourself first. Tip number 2, before you start dating, extinguish any past relationships or any negative relationships in your life before you jump into a relationship. If you're hanging out with your ex sometimes or you're connecting with your ex, it can just kill that spark for most people. I hope hope you guys really liked and enjoyed these tips on dating in Japan or anywhere in the world. And of course, I've made mistakes along the way, but I have been very successful. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon if you want to see more videos like this. And then please don't forget to check out my blog posts down below at lovelesskelly.com, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!